Hi, in this video I'm showing my game from 10 years ago. I'm starting my analysis from here, and if you want to see an opening, you can check out the whole game in the description. In this position I was to move, and I took an f6. I think it's better to wait and to play something like rook c1 to first improve all my pieces, to activate all my pieces, and in case he does something like bishop d7, I should do bishop b5 and then take on c6 and plant my knight on e5. That was my idea in the game, but I did it by eliminating both knights, which is not necessary in this position. I only need to eliminate knight on c6 to do that, so by giving up both bishops, I made life much easier for my opponent. I took on f6, he took back, and now bishop b5. Rook f8, and after this, I went queen c2. My idea here was to play knight e5, but first I needed to defend on f2. So he went bishop b7, knight e5, rook ad8 to stop the fork, and now I went queen e2. c5 and knight g4. He went queen e7, and now interesting thing here is that e6 is not hanging, because if I take, we exchange queens and he goes bishop c8, and now we have this x-ray when knight on g4 is sniped. So I took on c5 instead, and when he took back, I played queen e5. Now I could have taken on e6. That was the best move. And after bishop c8, I have rook c6. And now if he takes on g4, I take on c5, and I'm doing just fine. But black can just retreat. And even though he is pawn down, his position is very pleasant to play, because he has two bishops. This deep passed pawn can be potentially very strong. And the position is quite open, in which two bishops strive. So it wouldn't be so pleasant for me to play this position, but it's still the best option, which says a lot about my situation on the board. I played queen e5, and I think that here my opponent went into time trouble. And I was now playing for some tactics, for some tricks. That was my only how to say it, my only hope. Yeah. He went h5, and now if I go back, he would just open up his bishop. If I went back, he would maybe even push the h-pawn and completely open me up on the king side. So I decided, let's do some tricks here. I took on h5, he took back, and now his king is exposed, and that was my hope, that he would not manage this position pretty well. He went queen h7, which is a logical defensive move. I went knight h6, and he goes back to h8. And here I took on e6. Here it was better just to play queen e5, and on queen g7 go back. And now I threaten to go knight f7 to capture rook. If he goes rook f6, I can go knight g4. Oh, sorry, knight g4. Because if knight f5, he just covers with his queen. Knight g4, king g8, takes, and now rook e6 is a nice touch, because if he takes on e6, immediately I play queen g5 and I take his rook back. So with bishop f2 in this position, king h1, and he still needs to take, because if he doesn't, my rook gets to g6 and black's king gets under attack. So he has to take queen g5, and after queen d8, the position is balanced, because black's king is if black's king is not so opened, I think that black would have good chances for a win, but in this case, I think that it's a balanced position. But instead, I played rook e6. I was greedy, and I took on e6, he took on f2, and now I had to step from this discovered check. King h1, and he plays rook g8. Instead, I like this move, creating threats on your own, rook f1 with checkmate, and if something like this happens, you can go back to f6 and kick this knight away. And because he cannot move because of the queen, that's it. That would be game over for me. But fortunately, he played rook g8. I gave a check, and here my opponent made a huge blunder. He played queen g7. He had like 2 or 3 minutes on the clock, and he played queen g7, which loses instantly. Instead, he should have played rook g7, and the game goes on. If I give a check on e8, he has rook f8. If I play knight g4, he has rook f5, and after this bishop f8, I have a crazy move, which is queen f6. And this is so cool. I mean, bishop cannot be defended unless you take on f6. So you take it, knight f6. And now if queen moves, let's say to g6, you just take on f8, and in the end, white ends up with extra material, which is very weird. So he has to play rook f7 here. And after a couple of more moves, in this position, black is still much better because of his 2 bishops. And of course, this d pawn is helping a lot. But still, I would have some chances to survive. Instead, he plays queen g7. And now find the winning sequence for white. Make sure to pause if you want to solve it. The move is knight f7. And now if he takes with the rook h6, checkmate. He went king h7, and I gave a checkmate on h5. So that's it. I was so lucky in this position because my opponent went into time trouble. And instead of losing, I won this game. Thank you for watching, and see you. Bye.